wish I was invisible. How many times have you told yourself that? Did you tell your parents that? Did you tell your friends after having a bad day? You don't want to die. You don't want to be wiped off from the face of the earth. You simply want to stop being noticed. I can't say I had the worst life, but I didn't have it easy either. I was the oldest of 3 children, no father. I had to postpone my graduation, if that was ever happening someday, to work full-time and support my teenage brother and sister. I used to be just average enough to go unnoticed, and everything was fine, until I started working for a certain multinational fast food company where everything is oily. At first, I started stress eating, which made me gain a lot of weight quickly. Then, from the anxiety, unhealthy eating, and the sultry, greasy air, my skin had an awful break of acne at 20. And by awful, I mean my face looked like the outside of a sugar apple, and I had no money to spare in beauty treatments. The clients and my coworkers looked at me in disgust. They used to barely acknowledge I was there, and this unconcern made me comfortable. I never wished to be pretty because that would attract attention too. I wished I could disappear. I didn't want to die because my siblings needed me, but I wanted people to stop looking at me. The day I become invisible had been particularly bad. A customer spit on my face because they said I gave them the wrong change. I didn't. My manager didn't stand up for me. Instead, he apologized and gave them a free burger, then proceeded to lecture me about how gross I looked and how I was a shame for the whole company. I went home, made us some insipid food with the few cheap protein and vegetables we had in the fridge, then collapsed in my bed to cry myself to sleep. To make things worse, I had to share my bedroom with my 14-year-old sister, who often spent the whole night texting with her friends, laughing and constantly having her phone screen lighting. Usually, it comforted me a little to know that at least she was enjoying her golden years in ways I was never able to because I had to look after her. But that day, I felt nothing but annoyance. I want to disappear, I whispered very quietly to my worn-out pillow, head under the blanket, not daring to make my sister worry about me. I want to disappear. I rubbed my grainy face against the shabby and dusted pillowcase, considering taking a 3rd shift and just embracing an overwhelming amount of fatigue so I could spare money to treat my ugliness. I want to disappear. I was still thinking as my eyelids grew heavy enough to turn off my brain. I woke up to a commotion in my room. Why Darla gets to have a room all for herself, as she even has a spare bed? My 15-year-old brother Sydney was screaming in indignation. I don't remember, Sydney, Mom replied, her voice filled with exhaustion. You guys should just take turns between the bedroom and the living room, okay? Sydney has been sleeping in the living room since we got too old to sleep all huddled in the same bedroom. Mom has the other bedroom, the smaller one. But she's been sleeping here forever, Sydney whined, his pubescent voice oscillating between baritone and tenor, both out of tune. Just sort it out between you two, okay? I have real concerns, Sydney. Mom dismissed him, a little harshly. The boy looked like a pigeon that was surprised by a rock thrown in his direction. What are you guys talking about? I asked, finally waking up completely. Where will I sleep? I'm not sharing a bedroom with Fartney. Calling my brother Fartney always made Darla and my mom smile, but neither of them acknowledged my presence. It was like I didn't exist, or like I was invisible. Sydney sat in my bed, contemplative. I screamed, "Hey!" because he was going to smash my legs with his big stinky butt, but nothing happened. I just felt a little discomfort in my calves for a second, like a static shock as Sydney's body passed through mine, making us both occupy the same space. I immediately tried to take a look at myself, and it was hard. I was barely a ghost. It was like I was a Photoshop layer whose opacity was no more than 10%. By the time I recovered from the shock, the three of them had left the room. I tried to cross the wall, but I couldn't. I had to walk right through the door like everyone else. If no one opened them for me, too bad. Automatic doors didn't open for me and I couldn't hold objects. My hands just passed across them. I could see myself in the mirror, but the image was very faint. I was a living thing. It's just that no one could see me or remember me. My family had forgotten about me too. There was no place by the table for me, and no one bothered to turn on the TV when my favorite shows would be on. It was weird, hurtful, and freeing at the same time. I was glad to notice that my family seemed to be doing slightly better without me existing. The house wasn't so unkempt, and my mom wasn't as overworked as she used to be. The 5 extra years not being a single mother probably removed a huge load from her back. The first moments were dedicated to explore this new reality where, for all effects, I didn't exist and never had. I tried to figure out my new condition, but all I knew is that I wasn't dead. I was somehow erased from the normal world. It probably took me 3 hours walking around to realize I wasn't alone. I could see lots of barely corporeal creatures like me everywhere I went. Some of them walked aimlessly. Some seemed desperate because they had a purpose they couldn't fulfill anymore. Some seemed to have mastered walking through walls, but most were like me in that regard. Some were human, some were not. I was fine with my new condition until I realized what being invisible meant. It meant I was part of the realm of the forgotten ones. There lived beings that were still between the living, but whose presence was so weak that everyone thought they were dead, or simply forgot they ever existed in the first place. From what I experienced with my mom and siblings, and that they got stronger from draining the determination of others. All around me, there were apathetic human shapes. They had no will to go back to their normal, solid form. Most of them was so completely erased from existence that their face was a huge blur or looked like static. It was a sad place, and the only laughter came from the beasts, the ones that were thought extinct, but that, little by little, were regaining enough power to resurge into the non-invisible world. From behind me, I heard a raucous laughter, and a voice that sounded equal parts of evil and bored. "Well, well, well. You must be new here.